It is June 10th. I want to welcome you to this morning's committee hearing. I'm joined by our council president, Eric Garcetti. We, Mr. City Attorney, are one person short from having a quorum, so we will proceed as all of the actions will be communiques from the chair. I've had the opportunity to serve as chairman for almost 3 years, thanks to Council President Garcetti, but what I've never shared with you is that I am also a movie critic on the side. So, I am highly recommending, the highest rating you can get are 3 bottles of Wesson oil. So I am giving 2.5 bottles of Wesson oil to The Hangover.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime there's a movie, when you wake up in the morning and there's a chicken in the living room, a tiger in the bathroom, and a baby behind the bar, that shows that you had one hell of a night in Vegas. So if you want to watch something that is just simple but hilarious, it has 2.5 bottles of Wesson oil. With that said, and they had a little naked guy jump out of the truck. Oh, it's just hilarious. All he had on was black socks. No, I'll say, everybody sit back. Act 1, scene 1, it starts. Okay, it looks as though we'll probably have a relatively short meeting today. There are some items I think we can dispense with quickly, and those items would be items 2 through 8. So why don't we start out with item 2? In fact, wait one moment. I want my former landlord to come in and sit down and be comfortable. Jackie DuPont Walker is here. You did a phenomenal job as MC at Jan Perry's swearing in. In fact, your name is on my list, so the next time I do something, we make contract with you. I'm sure your price is reasonable. Like, anyway, if you could read item 2.
Meg Barkley at the CLA's office. Item 2 is a report from the CRA and the CLA relative to establishing a pre-qualified list of arts organizations for a 3-year term for Bunker Hill Arts Retention Program.
I thought that was, this one's good? Okay, then as a communique of the chair, we'll adopt the CLA report on that item. That brings us to item 3.
Item 3 is a report from the CRA and the CAO and a resolution relative to the acceptance and expenditure of $1.8 million in grant funds from the Port of Los Angeles.
Okay, then as a communique from the chair, on item 3 we'll adopt the CAO report. That brings us to item 4.
Item 4 is a report from the CRA and the CLA and a motion Wesson Garcetti relative to increasing funding for the Rosa Parks Village Affordable Senior Housing Project.
Okay, whose name is attached to that?
Mr. Wesson, is that you?
Yes, then what should we do with that?
We recommend adopting.
Okay, then I will follow your wise counsel, and we will adopt the CLA report with the amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
Go
As a communique from the chair, item 5, Mr. City Attorney, are you?
He's requesting that we read the amendment into the record. Are you okay?
Then that's fine.
All right. We recommend that.
That's why we keep you around.
The amendment proposed by the chair is to instruct the Housing Department and the CRA to ensure that no monies associated with this transmittal be counted towards future payments or repayments from the Mid-City Corridors project area to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Okay, then on item 4, we will adopt the CLA report with the amendments that were just read into the record. Okay, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item 5.
Item 5 is a report from the Housing Department and the CAO relative to the approval of and execution of a contract with Somerset General Builders and Restoration Contractors for a 1-year period with 1-year options for extension for the urgent repair program.
Okay, on item 5, we'll adopt the CAO report as a communique from the chair. Item 6.
Item 6 is a report from the city attorney on an ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to establish an obligation to notify the city of title transfers in multifamily rental property and require landlords to post a notice regarding the rent stabilization ordinance on those properties.
Okay.
And I believe there are amendments on this one as well.
Okay, then we'll adopt the ordinance with the amendments.
And the amendments are to instruct the city attorney's office to delete sections 5, 6, and 7 from the ordinance, and instruct the city attorney's office to make changes to the ordinance that all postings be provided in Spanish and any other appropriate language.
Okay. So let it be written, so let it be done.
Yes, sir.
Item 7.
Item 7 is a motion, Labange Garcetti, relative to preparing a list of residential housing projects that have stopped construction due to the economy and identifying potential assistance. There's another amendment to this one. We recommend that the CRA be included in the report back.
Okay, well, since Mr. Garcetti is vouching for Mr. Labange, then my comfort level has been elevated somewhat. Mr. Garcetti, did you want to speak a minute on this?
Questions on
Yeah.
the CRA for that stuff, or the LHD? You want to hold it, or you want to do it right now?
We could do it right now.
We have staff come forward on this real quick. This was Councilmember Labange. I too, and maybe the chair does, but I think throughout the city we're seeing some projects that are mid-stick, we'll call them, because they're sticks in the ground, framing up in some cases even more. And just down the street from my house, for instance, there's one that was ready for opening in March of 2009. And right now I saw some flowers blooming through it the other day, even though all the framing is up. And I know Mr. Labange has some projects, most notably the one that's right on the border of our district, the Madrone on La Brea, which is just south of Hollywood, north of Sunset on the west side of La Brea. It's like a 5 or 6 story huge housing development that's just, they went bankrupt and they're just sitting there. So we appreciate the reporting on the NOFA and the projects you've helped so far, but would love to have an idea of how you plan on helping those projects that we've not yet identified. And I know that MHP funds and Prop 1C funds remain frozen at the state board. Do you have any sense of when they might be unfrozen? Are we hearing anything?
Sure. Sean Spear with the Housing Department. Somewhat the good news that we've heard from the state is that in April they passed over $600 million in bonds that they put out for purchase. Out of that, there was confirmation that there was at least enough funding to cover the MHP and TOD infrastructure commitments that had already been made by the state's Department of Housing and Community Development up until that point, and covering those projects that were committed to presuming up until July of next year. So projects, in most of the cases, these programs actually function where they are providing the permanent financing to the project. So the developers will leverage that with private financing for the construction and then have it taken out by the MHP loan or what have you once the project is completed. So with that in place, HCD is providing confirmation of those commitments to developers, clearing the way for those projects to proceed. That's somewhat the good news for projects that have already been committed to. However, there are projects that are up at the state now being considered under TOD and others. As the council was aware, they provided a portion of CDBG funding from the stimulus package to a group of 6 projects that were looking for that funding. It appears that HCD will go forward with making awards of funding for those, but they are not. They've been instructed by the governor not to make actual commitments and allow those projects to close yet. So it's still up in the air as to when those projects will be able to proceed in starting construction. But at least the good news for our affordable housing projects is that we have none that have stopped that are in process with construction right now. Most of them are just waiting to get their commitments from the state to be able to start construction.
If we get a report back with a plan of action for new projects that are in jeopardy, that would be great too, and I'm sure the chair would love to share that with his colleagues on the council, our colleagues on the council, to see, I think there's people who are wondering and haven't had the time necessarily to see what's going on with the financing, et cetera. But I also know that the CRA has been approached on a number of projects that are not on the list. So if we could ask you to just coordinate with them and see, what's on their list and make sure that that's there as well, that would be great as well. And thank you for your help.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, no, thank you. Then since there are no more questions or concerns where it relates to this item, again, as a communique from the chair, we'll adopt the motion with the amendments. And you did already read those into the record?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that brings us to item 8.
Item 8 is a report from the Community Development Department and the CAO relative to submitting the 2010-11 Community Services Block Grant Community Action Plan to the State of California.
Okay, where it relates to this item, then item 8, we will adopt the CAO report. So, Mr. City Attorney, until we get another member of this committee, the actions taken on these items will be viewed as communiques from the chair.
Correct.
Okay? Now, that brings us to item 1. If you could read
Yes.
item 1.
Item 1 is a report from the Community Redevelopment Agency and the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to awarding contracts to a pre-qualified list of art fabricators and technicians to assist with the implementation of upcoming public art projects.
Good morning. My name is Felipe. I'm Felipe Chavez. I'm with the Chief Legislative Analyst Office. The CRA requests authority to award contracts to 29 firms for public art fabrication and technician services on an as-needed basis. The term of the proposed contract is for a 3-year period with 2 one-year renewal options for amounts ranging between $25,000 and $250,000 per contract. Funds for these projects would be derived from individual project areas, from the Cultural Trust Fund, and/or tax increment.
Felipe, could I stop you for a second? Do we have CRA staff here that actually vetted all of this before they gave it to the CLA's office?
They were requested to be
Are
here.
they? But they're not here?
I guess not.
Okay. Let me say this, and I appreciate everything that the CLA's office has done in preparing this report. When I served in the legislature, Mr. President, and for 2 years I was, I guess I'll say, fortunate enough to be Speaker of the California State Assembly, it was my job to appoint chairmanships to various members of the legislature. And I did that because I trusted that they would do the due diligence and they would properly vet. And so when they would give a committee report to the entire assembly body, we had a certain level of faith that they had done everything that they needed to do. And because we had so many things going on, we had to rely on them. I believe that our president, when he appoints individuals to chair the various committees here, that he expects them to go through the proper vetting process to ensure that when things get to the council floor, that there are no hiccups or minor hiccups. Where it relates to this contract, we did something similar not too long ago, and I took it at face value, given the statements that were given to me by the section of the CRA that did this. It wasn't until later in that committee, and I think it made it to the council, when I found out that there were a variety of concerns. So where related to this item, I gave it some additional attention. And I think I'm going to make a request that we continue this item. And if the CRA were here, I would probably suggest that the committee vote against this. And I will say in advance that I am leaning in that direction. In these very tough financial times, I would think that we would want to try to do everything that we could to focus on awarding contracts to vendors in or close to the Los Angeles area. We have several of these contractors, 2 of which are not even in the United States of America. And several of them are, 2 of which, are from other countries. 7 are from out of state, and you have a significant number that aren't even in this region of California or Los Angeles. And so that, for me, is problematic. And if I'm reading the information correctly, out of these 29 vendors, it appears that 3 of them have some minority connection. And I would think that we in this on this progressive council in this city could do a better job than that. And the thing that vexes me is that given what we went through with them the last time, this report doesn't show a heightened level of sensitivity. I know if this occurred to me and then I was coming back to do it again, that I would remember the concerns that were mentioned by the members, not only on this committee, but on the council. So what I'm going to do, Mr. President, if you're comfortable with this, I will continue this item for 1 week. But I want the department or the agency to know that as it stands today, my recommendation probably will be that we reject this. But I would suggest that they be here at the next committee hearing so that we could have a full discussion where it relates to this item. In fact, we're just joined by Ms.
What was that trumpet sounding?
By
I
Ms.
heard?
Perry. And Ms. Perry was the one in this committee that I think initially brought out concerns where it related to the last contract that we awarded, were related to art or artist projects that, for the CRA. And so I would again, I don't know, should we just reject it today? No, I'll tell you what, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. I will, I will continue, I will suggest that we continue this for 1 week. I would request that the representatives from the CRA that are responsible for vetting these contracts be present so that we could have a discussion about this, and maybe after 2 discussions, they will share the sensitivity that this committee and that this council has shown that it has. Mr. President, did you have anything? Not to put you on the spot. No, you know what, and that's
not a good thing.
Now, that is disrespectful, and it would never occur in the assembly. So I've stalled enough to see if they could, take a helicopter ride over here. Obviously, they did not. Ms. Perry, this is item 1, and
Don't even get me started.
so,
If I start, it's going to just flow all over into like item 30 from yesterday that was heard, and like there was no staff report.
All right, I move to continue.
so,
Okay, all right, so don't start me.
so you're saying we don't want to start her engine, is that, yeah,
That's a later. 9:30 is a good
No,
time.
wait till I get my motion drafted on item 30 of yesterday, okay?
But again,
It's ridiculous.
I think the appropriate action will be to continue this for 1 item, 1 week at least, and request that the CRA be here to defend their recommendation, and that they should also know in advance that it will be the chair's recommendation that we do not vote to accept this recommendation.
Does anybody know why they had two, how were they out of the
Ye-
country?
I was just looking at Frank Meyer of Munich
Ooh,
on my phone. It's beautiful.
We
It's
asked
beautiful
that
mosaic and
question.
glasswork, but I'm sure there's
No, but I mean, is
someone
there
here who can do
anybody
it.
here?
Nobody, no, but I don't get it, but no one is actually here.
Okay.
And even though we could just reject this to send a message that we'll reject it.
Okay, you're the chair.
She's
But
starting to get started, Mr.
Don't
Chair.
even get me started, but I would do whatever. If you wanted to do that today, I would do it with you.
And I really appreciate that.
I said the same as Juan.
Mr. Garcetti indicated that he'd be willing
Behind you.
to do the same thing as well. And I would hope that you would be willing to do this next week, because I want to
Now, you have it
continue.
later, either
Now,
way.
what I want to do is I want to have them here so that if, or what I believe will happen is that we reject it, I want to be able to look in their eyes. So that's what I would prefer to do. So with that said, no, I really want, no, I'm not worse than you. Anyway, so it's my recommendation, there's no objection, that we continue this item for 1 week. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to add Ms. Perry to the previous items.
No, that's what we're going to do now. Ms. Perry is now here, Mr. City Attorney. We do have a quorum. The items that were moved as communication from the chair can now be approved as a committee action.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I think, Ms. Barclay, there's nothing left on the agenda. Is that true?
That's true, sir.
So before we adjourn, I do want to say this, I got some public comment cards. But before we go to public comment, I do want to say to Ms. Perry, and I mentioned it to Ms. DuPont Walker, who came in, but that your swearing in ceremony was a phenomenal event. And
I think it was a coordination.
I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say that I had never been in the church before, and that it was
Were you afraid that you would catch on fire?
Mac.
That's
No,
a compliment.
there are certain churches where I go and I catch on fire all the time in a positive way.
Well, it's an event. center.
I don't do well at those big churches like that, but it was phenomenal. It was again my honor to be present. The MC was phenomenal.
Dr. DuPont was a fabulous.
I didn't know that she became a doctor, but stranger things, I didn't know that. I mean, she's
She's a
smart.
spiritual doctor.
She's smart enough to be a spiritual doctor. But I do have to say, for those of you that were there was a young man who sang that I can still hear his voice. It's one of the most powerful voices that I have ever heard. In fact, somebody needs to get him on American
Yeah.
He
Idol.
went on American Idol.
He did?
And Simon told him he was too loud.
You're
No.
kidding.
No.
Are you kidding me?
No.
He has a powerful voice.
He does, and he lives in the 9th. He lives just on the other side of Tokyo. So.
No, he was,
Next year.
it was phenomenal. Okay. We've got, Ray Horst and Chuck Tennant, please come forward. Ray, you'll be first. Andrew, thank you for reminding me the public comment cards. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Speak.
Yes.
The city's application for community development block grant money is deficient because the service organizations supplying domestic violence services under the CSBG application do not provide services to all those in need regardless of sex, as required by the Civil Rights Act of 1974 or the City Code of Conduct or the California appellate decision of Woods versus Shuri. We know this because we've tried to get services for men, and we surveyed the websites for those services and found them discriminatory. The county has surveyed the call logs of domestic violence hotlines and found that men in need of domestic violence shelter or services are not willing to brave the gauntlet because of the discriminatory practices and statements made by domestic violence shelters and other domestic violence service providers funded through LA City. We asked you to correct this immediately for a Los Angeles free of discrimination.
Great, thank you very much. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning.
How are you, sir?
Mr. Weston and Eric Garcetti and Dan Perry. On the 24th, a good friend of mine, Ruben Reyes, who is just appointed director for the Los Angeles Neighborhood Housing, is going to come and let you know what they do to help moderate and low-income families and make their existing housing a better and safer place to live. And also they have programs where they buy up existing properties and fix them up and resell them. I wanted to commend Yolanda Chavez for her continued hard work. A line from a song, does the world outside your window, and this is a community thing, make you feel afraid while gunshots ring in chaos to serenade the night? Stop the violence, we can all live in peace. And, there's the bad kids and the good kids. And the good kids, these days, you hear it every day, everywhere, more and more. They're afraid to go outside, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So we need to find more ways in programs to stop the violence in our street, with innocent kids being the victims, and the other kids, the kids filled with hatred and anger on the streets, are victims too. We need more programs in our council districts and to lessen the misguided anger and hatred. And I did want to say that in the fall, we're going to do some whale-watching, wonderful sea creature excursion trips for kids. And these trips will reverse the behaviors, acceptance from anger, a great field trip, a great learning experience. And another example is on the 29th, there's a free boat tour of the Port of Los Angeles for adults and kids, 2 trips. But these trips are good things. They take both sides of the kids, but when I see things on CNN where 36 kids get killed on the streets, and I see it here, and I see it in Englewood, and every day, it's terrible. There needs to be more things, because there's the 2 groups of kids. The ones that are doing it, that are angered and misguided, and the innocent ones that are afraid to go out of their houses. And I hear it more and more. They hear it and they're terrified. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, Ms. Barclay, is there any additional business before this committee?
No, sir.
Then this committee is adjourned. Hey, Jan, he actually made it to...